One of the more common ways that a lot of people actually do get second citizenship, even if for different reasons than we talk about here, is through marriage. Citizenship by marriage is one of the most straightforward ways to get a second passport. And while as the goody two-shoes of the offshore business, I don't suggest getting married to someone just for the sake of getting a passport, today I am going to share with you 6 exotic countries where if you happen to meet the right person, you could get yourself fast-tracked to a citizenship in no time. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson. I'm the author of this book and the founder of Nomad, where we help 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs and investors legally go where you're treated best. More at nomadcapitalist.com. And today I'm going to share with you 6 exotic countries where citizenship by marriage can pay off with a second passport in a relatively short period of time. Now, I'm not familiar with some of these countries' laws on marriage and laws on citizenship, so as always, make sure that any marriage you enter into is a legitimate one and you're not doing it just for a passport. That is my pro tip to you. But let's get started with some countries, including a couple where you can get citizenship pretty close to instantly. And we've talked before about the African nation of Cape Verde, for example. You get married, you can qualify for citizenship basically immediately. And the Cape Verde passport is one that used to have its own sort of investment program. And so there are some people, old school citizenship by investor collectors, who are Cape Verde citizens. This is not the world's best travel document. However, if you want some kind of presence in Africa, if you think the African Union could be worth something in the future, if you think that Africa as a continent is interesting and being part of an African country could have some value, it is not the worst passport over there in West Africa, over there in the islands. And so that's one where you can obtain pretty quickly. Another one you can obtain pretty quickly is Honduras. Technically, if you're married to a Honduras citizen, you do not need to go and live in Honduras. You can apply for Honduran citizenship pretty quickly. And so that's pretty straightforward as well. Not a bad passport in Central America. Also in Africa, Burkina Faso. Is this a great travel document? Not so much. But it's interesting. And so if you get married to a citizen of Burkina Faso, you are eligible to apply for naturalization yourself after a mere 6 months of being together. And so again, you've got an African passport. Is that worth something? Perhaps not. I will say this about African passports. If you look at a lot of them, they can go visa-free to Singapore and good parts of Southeast Asia. Some of them can go to Ecuador. Ecuador lets a lot of folks in. So it is potentially a gap filler passport. Whether you're getting it by marriage or any other way, there are some travel benefits from having an African passport. And so Burkina Faso is one that you can obtain through marriage in as little as 6 months. Now, the 4th exotic passport you can obtain is from a country that we've talked about a lot over the years, and that is Cambodia. Cambodian citizenship, like so many of these exotic passports, isn't going to unlock a ton of doors in terms of travel, but here's what's very interesting about Cambodia. It is part of the ASEAN region, which means you've got these countries which are agreeing to cooperate, and they're agreeing to cooperate, for one thing, in terms of visa-free travel. And so I've had cases before where someone comes to me and he says, listen, Andrew, I don't want to be a U.S. citizen anymore. I have a wife or a girlfriend who's Asian. I just want to live in Asia, and quite frankly, I don't want to travel a lot. In that case, I've told you stories about, for example, a guy who was potentially eligible for a Southeast Asian passport. He could get that passport from his family for free. And then while the passport itself wasn't that great for travel around the world, it was certainly great through the ASEAN region and through Asia. And so Cambodia is somewhat the same thing. Now, I think a lot of people will be shocked to see someone who doesn't look at all what they would deem Cambodian showing up with a Cambodian passport. However, I've heard a couple of stories of people who have these Asian passports from one means or another that come from somewhere in the West, and that are able to get around. I think a country like Singapore might be more understanding of that than some others, but they haven't really had a lot of problems. And I can speak personally. I mean, I have passports that perhaps someone would think, hey, this guy doesn't look like he's from there, depending on where the country is and what they know about it, and really haven't gotten asked almost any questions about that. So Cambodia, 3 years if you're married to a Cambodian citizen. This is a passport that is pretty difficult to get. Asian passports in general are pretty difficult to get. Asia is a region where if you have wealth, you can go there, you can get a lot of good tax incentives, they leave you alone by and large. It has definitely been a little bit of a different ball game in the last year due to the pandemic, but Asia has not been a place for citizenship. It's been a place for residence, for safe haven for storing gold, for banking, for all that kind of stuff, but not for citizenship. If you happen to go to Cambodia, you meet a Cambodian, you can get an attractive citizenship in 3 years, and that's going to be a lot easier than anything else you're going to do in that country. There are potentially other ways to get Cambodian citizenship. Some are a bit more legit than others, but this is by far the easiest. And again, if you look at other countries in the region, definitely something that stands out if you happen to fall in love with someone from Cambodia. Now onto a country that a lot of people might consider a great place to live, even though the taxes aren't great, and that is Fiji. So, compared to Burkina Faso or Cape Verde or even Cambodia, countries that I think are very interesting, probably get a lot more takers to say, hey, I'd love to go and live in Fiji. And so Fiji, from my time in that part of the world, it's a 10-year naturalization process. I believe it's still 10 years. When you do marriage, you get to put that down to 3 years, and you can actually do it even over a 5-year period. So you have a little bit of flexibility there. So you can get that timeline down to 3 years. You get Fijian citizenship. This is not a bad citizenship. So when you compare it to Burkina Faso, this is going to punch above the weight a little bit. Definitely good access in the South Pacific. What's interesting about some of those passports down there is if you don't have a TRA passport that allows you to go to Australia and New Zealand, most of these passports will allow you to at least transit through Australia and New Zealand. And so if you're someone who wants to spend part of your year in Asia, part of your year in South America, and you had one of these passports, you would usually be able to fly through Australia, fly through New Zealand, and go from let's say Malaysia to Auckland to Santiago, Chile, and that could make travel a little bit easier. And so it opens up that access where Australia and New Zealand, for those who don't have TRA citizenship, pretty difficult to get a visa to in many cases, or just a hassle to get a visa to for even some wealthy people. So that's definitely one that you could take a look at. The last exotic country that gives you also some flexibility is Bangladesh. It's 2 years on the ground, and they let you do that out of 5 years. If you meet someone from Bangladesh, you can fast track that citizenship. Again, not a particularly easy one to get in general. Also not a very strong passport, certainly one that probably is subject to a number of prejudices. We made a video on best second passports for South Asians a while back, where I talked about the fact that if you're from South Asia, probably a good idea to go to a European country, some Western country first, get your second passport, establish yourself, and then go on from there. But if you happen to meet someone from Bangladesh, you can get on the track to that in as little as 2 years. So if there's an exotic passport you think I'm missing, definitely leave a comment below. I want to hear about it. We keep track of all of these interesting opportunities around the world. Of course, they can be subject to change. Countries in the past, we've talked about Armenia, which used to allow people who marry Armenian citizens to become citizens themselves instantly. That changed, where they do require a residence period. These things do, as with any other kind of citizenship, change over time, where citizenship investment programs either go away, or they raise the criteria, or they raise the investment, or residence programs especially are known for doing that. So I imagine some of these will change over time. The interesting thing is these are in exotic countries where I imagine probably a lot of people aren't going and doing this. This is not exactly like trying to get a green card. I doubt Fiji is overrun with people doing this, or Cape Verde. But if you happen to find someone in your travels from one of those countries, definitely something that you can consider as part of the package of your new life together. So people ask, Andrew, how do I get the most out of Nomad Capitalist? How do I begin my Nomad Capitalist journey? The first thing people do is they start right where you're at. They watch YouTube, they listen to podcasts, they read articles at nomadcapitalist.com. We've spent years creating thousands of pieces of free content so that you can get the vibe from someone who's actually done this, from someone who's actually been in your shoes. What they'll do next? They'll get a copy of the book. You can find it on Amazon. It costs a few bucks, and while it's not going to give you all the secrets, it's going to, again, give you more of the vibe. You're going to learn a lot of the things that I've learned. You're going to learn some strategies you can employ, and you're going to get a lot further in your journey. From there, if you are the 7 or 8 figure entrepreneur investor, you can go to nomadcapitalist.com. You can click Become a Client. We're pretty busy these days, but we have availability to help a limited number of people who want to create a holistic plan, something that I think is so important. So if you want to do that, go to nomadcapitalist.com, click Become a Client, learn more about how it works and how we can help you.